glad to introduce Matt Chamley, who's the head of technology for VMware. So if you'd welcome Matt to the stage.
Thanks, Anthony. Good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here at Pivotal Summit here in Sydney, and it's great to be here with all of you. I'm from VMware, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about that space in the middle between where application magic happens and where infrastructure's there to support it. My role at VMware is to work with our customers to help them define where technology can enable the creation of business value. Now, I lead over 100 engineers that have a varying mix of skills from virtualization and cloud services all the way through to cloud-native application development. Now, before VMware, I've been there for about 2.5 years. I was actually spent most of my career customer side, most recently at places like PwC and Woolworths. And throughout my career, I've led a number of different teams, developers, infrastructure operations, and even a few esoteric teams like data science and creative design studios. The one thing that I still haven't got figured out yet is what to dress in. I normally run around in a t-shirt and a pair of jeans and I get ridiculed in the office, but every time I'm out in front of someone, I feel like I've got to dress up. So I'm looking at the audience again and I've not got it right, so maybe for next time. Apart from dress sense, the one thing that's really stood out to me in my career is the rate of adoption of digital technologies into modern society. And if I just go back a few years and I take an example from my personal life, when I was at PwC, I delivered a project on behalf of the CDO, and as a way of saying thanks, he gave me this Google Home. Now, Google Home had just come out, so it was the gift to give to everyone. And I went home with much excitement and put it on the counter, and my little kids, Madison and Felix, who were 5 and 6, looked at it and they said, this is great, and we unboxed it and we plugged it in, and we looked at it and the kids said, well, what does it do? And we went, well, we don't know. But I remember the ads, and I said to the kids, why don't you ask it what noise a snake makes? And with much giggling delight, they did. They also found out what noise a dog makes, and a cat makes, and a whole raft of other things. But fast forward to today, and the kids are actually asking Google, hey, what's the weather going to be like today? So they know whether they need to take a raincoat or not to school. They're checking some of their maths in their homework. They're actually using it as a sound system in the playroom. But more importantly, we're also using it in our house to control things like blinds, lights, and even turning the TV on and off. Now the kids, when I said 5 and 6, they're only almost 8 and 6 now. So this is what they're doing today. So the one thing that is really there is that as a society, as we become more familiar with technology, the greater our demands grow. And it's happening at kids at a young age, not iPads, but actually the inclusion and integration of digital technologies in everyday life. I'd like to put to you that software is the only way to create value that can meet the rate of change and adoption in customer demand. Anybody not seen Happy Feet? I'd say it's a great movie, but based on the story I'm about to tell you, I've got chills every time I tell this story. So I was a CIO for a digital marketing agency called Legion Interactive in about 2006. And this is at the time that Happy Feet came out. At the time, Village Roadshow combined with MasterCard and said, look, let's have a marketing promotion where we'll give 4,000 tickets to our loyalty card holders and give them an opportunity to see an advanced screening. So the mechanic was simple. All they had to do was pre-register, get in the user details and create a user account so that at 12 o'clock, midday on December the 7th, all they had to do was log in and be one of the first people to actually claim their free tickets. Can anyone see a problem with that? A couple of nods. In marketing terms, it's called an avalanche event. An avalanche it did. The system started to get impacted at about 11:54 because apparently time is rubbery, regardless of where you are. It crashed before we went live at 12. So what went wrong? Now, based on a conversation I was having with some people this morning, this is pre-containers and it's almost pre-virtualization. And at the time, we were deploying code directly into bare metal through .NET. Now, the challenge we had is that at 9:30 in the morning, the operations team picked out the fact that the developers had deployed the code to the MasterCard server that MasterCard had signed off and had been audited, but it was for low volume. Therefore, it may have been secure, but the memory wasn't there. And sure enough, the team panicked. And if they'd have had containers, or VMs, it may have been a lot easier. But what they had to do is they had to redeploy the code into a new part of the web farm, which had different DLLs and libraries, and they couldn't do it in the time, hence the system coming down. So this is more than just a story, though, of how the developers and the operations team need to collaborate and work more closely together. There is a real opportunity, certainly today in 2019 and going into 2020, where resilience can be built into the underlying infrastructure to support the developers and what they do. Now, at VMware, we've been focusing on building the most reliable infrastructure that we can provide to you and the most reliable on the market. Our vision is simply to build a digital foundation for the creation of value for all organisations, whether you're hosting existing applications or building new applications from scratch. Our aim is to provide access to any cloud so that you can exploit the benefits of the public cloud community, to host any application, whether it's a new application you've built yourself, or an existing application or curated environment that you've been managing over time. And also to connect to any device. And there's a growing number of devices out there as we start to look at IoT and edge solutions, whether it's an OT device or even a remote office network. All of this with intrinsic security built in. So let's have a quick look at the any cloud part of the picture. As we think of cloud, we realise that we live in a complex world. The cloud was supposed to bring simplicity, but all it's really done is brought diversity and more options on how we run, build, and manage our environments. This is bringing complexity in options for things like infrastructure hosting. It's not a simplification and it's not one. People now have the option to host on mainframes which still exist out there, bare metal, virtualised environments, and for those advanced organisations building some kind of private cloud construct. We can host them in any number of public cloud environments, and again, we can host it out on the edge as well. In the application space, we have those traditional applications which are large monoliths. They're slow to change, they're change adverse. We generally leave them alone and set and forget to support the line of business. There's cloud native applications which are built for speed and flexibility. Hybrid applications which integrate different parts of the application environment through APIs. Packaged applications which are self-contained units with all the dependencies of the code to be deployed when and where as required. And finally, SaaS services where you can consume the key utility of the application without the overarching application lifecycle management. The industry has also commoditised a bunch of powerful services out there for utility consumption that enables you to build more powerful applications, but also has an unprecedented, I knew I was going to get over that one, unprecedented level of demand on your infrastructure. Even public cloud infrastructure, remember, someone somewhere is worrying about capacity. Whether you know them or not is a completely different story. And then finally in operations, there is a growing number of tools, skills and teams required to secure, run and maintain your applications and your data. So the question is simple, are we creating chaos or opportunity in the market? Is there chaos there in how we efficiently and securely deliver and build applications? Or are we creating opportunities to create new and more powerful applications to support you, your business and your end consumers? So VMware recognises these challenges and we're working with organisations like Pivotal and with our customers to understand what we need to do to build these platforms to help you create value. And it starts with a solid foundation, and that's what VMware has been building out as a part of its multi-cloud strategy, and we're basing it on our VMware technology that we've been building out over the last 20 odd years. Most recently, we've had announcements in AWS where you can actually consume the VMware cloud in the Amazon environment where it's provided as a managed service by VMware. So we actually help manage, run and build that entire environment for you. Recently, there have been announcements as far back as August, so reasonably recent. You can get the same services in Azure, Google. We're continuing to invest in our IBM cloud strategy over the last 3 years, a relationship, and again, recent announcements with Oracle. So combining all of these together, these hyperscalers with another 4,200 VMware cloud providers out there in the globe, makes it one of the largest cloud environments that you can host your applications in. There's more workloads being hosted in VMware than Azure totally in the globe. Now we've got the platform sorted out. What about the application space? Well, there's this opposing dichotomy between the IT operations people who are averse to change and averse to risk. What they really want is secure, stable and reliable infrastructure. What developers want is the freedom and the agility to consume new services and new applications. So the layer that's emerging to provide that abstract between the underlying infrastructure and the application support is Kubernetes. It's low level enough that developers can create their own applications with what they need, but it's also high level enough that there's consistency across the various environments from an operations perspective. Of course, the challenge with Kubernetes is it can be difficult to configure based on the flexibility that's inherently designed for it so that it can go into multiple environments and support a complex footprint, as it were. So our aim at VMware is to provide Kubernetes to you without having, or the benefits of Kubernetes, without having to have a deep subject matter knowledge on Kubernetes. And again, I think if I digress for a second, my experience in the field is that when we talk to customers about Kubernetes, it's generally the developers that are building these things because they want the services and the infrastructure guys aren't across it yet. But the reality of it is every hour a developer's not writing code is an hour that the developer's not creating value for the business. So we've actually got to start making it easier, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, open source isn't new to VMware. We've been supporting containers for years, and we've realised that we've needed to address this management issue. So Kubernetes has been a core capability and central to our strategy moving forward. We acquired Bitnami earlier this year, and Bitnami is an open source packaging catalogue, like a marketplace, like iTunes, where you can go and get various components and applications deployed out to containers and VMs. A year ago, we acquired Heptio and we secured Craig McCluckie and Joe Bader, two of the three founding architects of Kubernetes, as well as a slew of other industry specialists that have come on board from Heptio to help us help you get the most out of your Kubernetes environment. And finally, you may be aware of the recent announcement for VMware intending to acquire Pivotal, which is still going through the process. So we've brought all this together in a new portfolio of products and services that we've brought to market as VMware Tanzu. Tanzu is Swahili for branch, and the inference there is that we can help you create a new branch of innovation. It's also Japanese for portable container, which has the connotation that you can have portable containers. That was a really bad joke. We'll move on. So with Tanzu, we're trying to help you build modern applications, run them efficiently, and be able to manage them in a complex environment. So let's have a quick look at the build space. Ultimately, it's all about applications, and this is where value is created. So this is probably one of the more important parts of Tanzu for everyone in the room. Across Bitnami, Pivotal, and Spring, there are over 5 million developers globally today that are using these services. And as you've seen with that growing footprint in the cloud, this will become more available as we move forward. Bitnami brings that open source catalog that I've spoken about. Pivotal, you're all aware of. It's that platform that gives you excellent developer experience. And Spring helps you accelerate developer productivity. Just another quick story here. As I see the clock is counting down, not up. So I've actually got a few more minutes, so I'll slow down a bit and breathe. As I said, I work for Woolworths. And one of the things we looked at was how do we get customer loyalty at Woolworths? And I'd like to put to you quite simply, and if there's media in the room, this is my personal view. No one is loyal to Woolworths or Coles or Aldi or IGA for a simple thing. They are a super marketplace. People buy the products. They shop on price. They shop on convenience. I mean, how many times have you been asked to pick up some milk on the way home and you're going to go to Woolies because you've got the Woolies loyalty card, but it's a Coles petrol station and you need some petrol at the same time, so you get it there. Or you go to Aldi next door and you get the nappies. Fundamentally, we're buying on convenience. The real place for those brands to really differentiate themselves is in the customer experience. And the best way to do that is through digital engagement with their customers. As I said earlier, we can create value at speed with code to meet changing natures of demand and changing rates of demand with our customer base. So whether it's click and collect, same day delivery, or even real-time offers being presented to you as you walk across the threshold into the supermarket, adding real value to you, that's where the convenience, that's where the brand loyalty comes back in. So being able to develop code, being able to experiment and be able to move things around is critical. So as I said, we're excited at the prospect of having Pivotal join the team. Pioneers in microservices, really popular. I have no idea who's downloading 75 million versions of Spring each month, but at least 750,000 organisations think it's good enough that they're actually hosting it on PaaS as well. So it's a really broad ecosystem, and VMware is really excited to bring them in together with VMware and extend that ecosystem and bring the knowledge of Pivotal and make sure that our strategy is heading in the right direction. Now, we've already been working with Pivotal over the last few years on PKS. And Pivotal's moving forward and really seeing the value and the benefit of Kubernetes and are starting to invest in additional Kubernetes native services. But I suppose the big thing to pull out is the point on the right there, that PCF, or PaaS I should say, is actually being re-platformed to run on a Kubernetes environment. Pivotal's technology, products and direction are a large part of VMware's vision towards Tanzu. Now, I spoke about Bitnami before. As last week, so it's hot off the press, we announced the beta for Project Galleon at VMworld in Barcelona. Now, this is simply an enterprise-grade version of the Bitnami open source catalog that enables you to provide a secure, constantly managed and maintained lifecycle catalog for an enterprise secure environment. How it works is relatively simple. We take the open source Bitnami catalog, we give the enterprises the opportunity to include their own components in there. We run it through a customization engine where you can bring your own corporate standards, whether it's your operating system, your security agents, and other bits and pieces, and enable you to populate that catalog to run in your environment on any of those clouds. So we've filled out the build portion, but let's talk about how we can run Kubernetes across all of these environments. As I said earlier, VMware's been working with Pivotal for PKS. There's an enterprise grade and a simple essentials grade where you can run an enterprise grade version of Kubernetes to manage your container footprint. It will run on VMware vSphere on top of it. It'll run on VMware and AWS. It will run at the edge. It will run on bare metal, and it'll run across any of the cloud providers. But now in beta is Project Pacific, which was announced in August. I'm not sure if you're across this at all, but basically what we're doing is we're fusing containers and VMs into vSphere, into the hypervisor itself. Now, this is more than just being able to run containers or Kubernetes on top of a VM. This is actually re-platforming vSphere, so it's actually being built on container-based architecture. So we're actually going to exploit the benefits of containers in the underlying platform. What this means is it creates containers provides containers as a first-class citizen as well. So you can actually ask vSphere to spin up a VM or a container, and it will stand on its own. It's not being embedded in one or the other or nested in one or the other. The other interesting thing is we drop from the control layer down to the hypervisor layer. The experience we've got in efficiently getting the most out of the underlying infrastructure has some performance benefits to the code as well. In fact, we found running Kubernetes in vSphere is 30% faster than Linux VMs, and it's 8% faster than running on bare metal. You're just going to accept that, are you? It's faster than bare metal. That's great. Well, I'll move on. Based on the way we optimize, 22 years of experience running the hypervisor, knowing how to get the most out of the underlying technology, underlying physical hardware, those lessons have been incorporated in, and specifically in the memory management aspects, but 8% faster on bare metal, so that's a really interesting statistic. Of course, when Project Pacific comes out as the next major release of vSphere, which will be next year, hopefully early next year, can't say too much more than that, that will go out to our entire environment. So thousands of partners out there. We talked about VMware Cloud on AWS briefly. As soon as it comes out in vSphere, because VMware Cloud on AWS is a VMware managed environment, it will automatically roll out in the VMware Cloud on AWS environment as well. There's over 300,000 customers of vSphere, and there's millions of VI admins. Okay, so I work for VMware and most of you don't. So why is that important to you? If you're doing container-based development, then you now have a massive footprint of demand or opportunity for you to be able to build that out. And if you extend it into things like PKS, into those other clouds, you now can build those containers and applications to basically be hosted anywhere. So given everything we've spoken about, there's a lot of complexity. So why don't we have a quick look at how we're going to manage this environment? And Tanzu is the one product that we believe enterprises will use to manage Kubernetes regardless of where it is. It's about coming up with a standardized layer and set of services that, regardless of which team you're in, what type of Kubernetes cluster you're using, which cloud you're in, that you'll be able to manage all of that efficiently and effectively. Two E's that should never come in the same sentence. We've come full circle now from the story at the start. We talk about the developers and the IT operations people. The IT operations people now have the controls they need in the environment. Sorry, wrong slide. Got to get me. VMware Tanzu Mission Control is an agnostic management tool that enables you to manage your Kubernetes clusters regardless of where they are. It will be launching early next year. As I say, it's already in private beta. It will provision and manage PKS, VMware, AWS, Azure Kubernetes services. It will also plug into third-party Kubernetes services as well and allow you to manage third-party distributions of Kubernetes. And through that integration, we'll give you direct access through APIs to a whole bunch of other services that VMware provides, such as Cloud Health. So you can look at how the operational performance or the financial performance of your systems are going regardless of where they are. Tanzu brings us full circle, where the operator now gets the control of the environment, can standardise it through policies and configuration, and the developer gets the freedom and the flexibility to access the resources they need to innovate through self-service APIs and UI technologies. Now, Tanzu's coming. There's betas happening. It's going to come out relatively quickly. We've been working with Pivotal and customers on PKS. The short answer is PKS remains the best industry-class Kubernetes environment out on the market. We're staying true to source on open source architectures in the development of our applications. We're going to continue to drive PKS. For those organisations that are interested in going down the full Tanzu path, you don't have to wait. Despite the benefits you can get today with PKS, it's the perfect on-ramp to get you ready for a Tanzu environment. So that completes the picture of VMware Tanzu. We're going to continue to make large investments in this space as Tanzu continues to be a key strategic focus of VMware moving forward. We are looking to redefine and modernise the term of infrastructure. And as I alluded to earlier, how do we get these application frameworks and tools into the infrastructure teams without making it too hard for them? We do it by integrating into the underlying technologies and simplifying it through standard controls and standard utility operational management tool sets. In essence, Tanzu will bring together this portfolio of products and services to simplify complexity and help organisations create value at speed. And finally, in simple terms, when I look at what VMware is doing with partners, I think of it in a similar way to a railway system. We're looking to lay the tracks for easy access and portability. We're working with our partners to build the platforms to simplify onboarding and hosting any workloads. There is an intrinsic security element to everything that we're doing that is almost invisible to the eye. And finally, it provides you, the passenger, with the flexibility to go where you want, when you want, as you see fit. Fundamentally, it's all about abstracting the outcomes away from the underlying technology so that you can focus on the creation of value for your business and for your customers. That's me. Thanks very much.